It's the story of an American held in a dark Venezuelan prison.
Then all of a sudden, they all kind of lined up. They pointed their guns at me. And this is the point where I thought, I'm going to die today.
I'm Becky Bruce. I spent a year working on Hope in Darkness, which now has more than 2 million downloads. Find it on kslpodcast.com or wherever you listen to podcasts.
So right now, Dr. Matt, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. And it seems weird to be 46. Yeah. And because I really enjoyed working for Pinnacle Recovery.
Sure.
I know you did. And in the beginning, it had the new car smell, and there was a lot of cool things going on there. And it was kind of like dating, you know. But when they decided not to work with anymore, it was. Have you ever been broken up with a girl and just been cool with it?
Have I felt cool with it?
Yeah.
I can remember one time it was a relief because I was too chicken to do the breaking up.
Yeah, and that wasn't like this one, but it was like I
kind of ready to move on.
I really didn't fight back, you know. I mean, I was like, I gave him a hug afterwards, you know, and said, "Hey, I'll see you around."
Yeah,
because I was like, I just didn't know if I want that to be my life.
Well, when you told me about it, I could tell you had. I mean, you're the eternal optimist, and so. My worry when I talk to you about stuff like that is if you're being honest, and you always are, and I mean like honest in that you're okay with it. But I could tell that you really understood it was a business decision, and they had to put dollars in other places, and all of that. It still kind of stinks to be let go.
Yeah, to be broken up with.
Right?
Yeah.
You're like, hey, wait a second. But I think that. The reason I could tell you were really okay with it is I think you are ready to move on to something else that may not necessarily be in the recovery world for your employment. You have lots of opportunities in the media to keep being involved with the recovery world, but it doesn't have to be your employment.
Well, to be honest with you, this is my way right now with this podcast, with you every week. This is kind of my way to give back to the recovery world. This is something that I'm passionate about. This is something that I love. And this is something that I want to continue to do. A lot of people, because I put something on Facebook, you know, I'm looking for my next new adventure. And a lot of people are like, hey, is Project Recovery going away? It's like, no, it's not going away.
Right.
Well, I mean, we're going to be here for as long as you allow us.
We're talking about doing more in the public with the show. So actually what you're listening to here you might see us around town a little bit more in the near future.
And that's the goal, is to grow this and become a resource for the community, for addicts, for loved ones, for family members, and all that. So right now, it just seems weird because I'm at 46. My whole life I wanted to be on TV and radio, and then I did it.
You did it young, too.
Yeah, I did it. And so now, like, honestly, would I like to get back in TV? Yeah, I think I would like to, but I'm not sure if it's in the cards. And if it's not, I really am okay with that. Yeah. And so now I'm trying to figure out, where are my interests? What are my skill set? What am I good at? Where can I be the most valuable? And not to sugarcoat it, where can I make the most? Because,
well, sure, yeah.
I mean, I've still got alimony. I've still got child support.
Right.
I've still got kids. I mean,
stressors haven't gone away.
I mean, I'm giving plasma on the side just to afford my kids' dance tuition.
Wow, really?
No, but I should.
You have me on that one.
Yeah, but I mean, right. So I mean, those things don't go away. I've still got responsibilities that I have to pay for.
Well, it's an interesting time in life. On the one hand, you say, "Well, I'm 46 and I'm doing this," but one of the things that gets a bad rap in our society and our culture is the midlife crisis. But the reality is, midlife is a natural, psychologically developmental time where people pause and they evaluate, do I like what I've done? I'm not a kid anymore. I've done all the big grown-up stuff. I graduated from high school, graduated from college, I had a career, got some kids, got married, got divorced, but done all the big stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And do I like where I'm at? How do I feel about it? And I'm not dead yet, though. I've got a lot of life left. Do I like the trajectory I'm on? Like you and I, you can 10 years from now, 20 years from now, if I don't make big changes, I kind of can see where I'm going to be. And that you couldn't see that when you were 20, right? And so what happens is some people freak out at that moment, and they make some regressive decisions, and they act like they're 16 again. And
Go buy a yellow Boxster Porsche.
That's the one. That I always go with the yellow Corvette, but either one, and they, get a 20-year-old girlfriend and that kind of stuff. But if you don't blow it, actually, the midlife self-evaluation, which sounds better than crisis.
Midlife awakening.
Awakening is a time that's very exciting. If you look around you, friends and family that have been in their midlife, a lot of people make some pretty awesome and exciting tweaks and changes. They get healthier. They start to save money for real this time. They might actually make some big and small career changes that I knew one guy when I was just a resident, and he was a resident, but he was like almost 50. And I was, in my late 20s, and I was like, hey, what's, you're an old man. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? And he said he had always wanted to go to medical school, had always wanted to be a pediatrician. Weirdly, long story, I won't tell it. His dad thought that was the worst thing you could possibly do, that doctors were horrible. And so he chose this other career path. And finally, he hit a depressive crisis. And his wife was like, we can get divorced or you can go to med school. What's your choice?
Ooh, both sound bad.
And he he loved it. He was that pediatrician that you'd want your kid to go to, just perfectly suited for it. But it was a huge shift in the middle of his life to go do something big like that. Most of us do small things. Get a little bit healthier, start to save some money, quit being a jerk and nicer to your kids, whatever it happens to be, reach out to friends. We start to make tweaks and changes. So actually, maybe this is the best time for you, Casey, to reevaluate, since you have to anyway. Who do I really want to be 10 years from now? What sort of profession do I really want to be in? You might be way happier because you've been forced into this self-evaluation time.
Oh, I'm not depressed. I mean, I'm a little scared, mostly excited, but I'm really excited to see what the future holds. Yeah. I mean, there's some things that scare me a little bit about not having a constant paycheck, but I'm able to look at things and figure out, is this something I really want to do? I was reading this article with Judge Judy.
Yeah.
And Judge Judy, believe it or not, was like a district court judge in New York or something like this, and it was the top of her field. And when she retired, and it was like, well, I don't know what to do now. And then this TV job came by, and she got it. And now she is the highest paid female person on TV right now. We're talking above Ellen, everybody else. She makes more money than all of them.
More than Ellen?
More than Ellen.
Wow.
For probably the TV.
For TV. Yeah.
And someone goes to her, goes, so what's that like? And she goes, I had a very good first career. I never thought that my second career would be bigger than my first.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what it is. I know for me and my friends and everybody, I mean, to have a 16-year-old or an 18-year-old pick out what they want to be for the rest of their lives, some people do it and they love it.
Some people do, but that's why so many people struggle with depression and substance abuse in midlife, is because you often get to that point and you're like, is this what I really want
This
to
is
be?
not what was in the brochure.
This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And yeah, I think that's a pretty normal evaluation.
And then all of a sudden you throw kids and marriage into it, and a mortgage and bills and all that stuff. And so then you feel trapped because you've got kids that are relying on you. You've got a wife, and this is what you chose. And so you almost have to stick with it and go, I don't know, this is what I chose. But then you're right. I think
that's bumming me out, man.
Yeah.
But that's absolutely right, because then you have people that depend on you. And so what do if you're
put your shoulder to the wheel?
Happy, right? Head down and go forward. And that's where sometimes people do make the mistake of turning to substances to kind of ease some of that pain. The classic, dad comes home from a long day of work and pours himself a double scotch, and that's the nightly routine. And there are better ways to handle it. Self-awareness, like we're talking about right now, the fact that you're forced into this self-awareness. You have to find a new career path. Mm-hmm. Most people are kind of stuck on there, and they don't awaken themselves to the reality that I could do something different. Sometimes that means a different career. Most of the time, it means just making changes on the path you're already on. And so it can be an exciting, kind of really vibrant time of life. Midlife does not have to be a bummer.
So we're talking about depression. This will bring me to our next viewer feedback. And this is what It's the Beeve wrote on Instagram to me.
It's the Beeve?
It's the Beeve.
All right.
Casey, thank you for your podcast. It's changing my life for the better. From listening to Boyd's story and really everything in between. What really hit home for me was a story with Nate. Although I wasn't raised in the church or the guidance there, Nate and I shared a lot. Thanks for just simply saying, it's not a flaw to my character to be depressed. I've lived my entire life believing it was and being ashamed. It wasn't just sadness, but it was always been taboo. I've battled depression and drug addiction my entire life. Everyone around me has struggling with the same struggles as me. I'll make a long story short, I'm proud of myself, and it's people like you that keep me going and being positive. Looking back at 15 living in the group home because foster parents wouldn't take me, to finding a way to be successful in life. I have a beautiful wife, 2 amazing kids, and having a career I feel I can offer better life for all of us. That being said, it's a daily struggle for me. Like Nate mentioned, he has a plan. I fight the feeling of leaving everyone better off without me, mainly financially. Life insurance is a wonderful, powerful thing. Hearing you and Dr. Matt on the last episode has just really given me hope as of late. Just wanted to say thank you.
Oh, that's great. That makes getting up and coming down here and doing the show worth it.
It really does. And I get emails and Facebook messages and Instagram messages all the time of people saying, hey, look. And you know what's weird is that we'll sit in here and we'll do an interview and we'll think, that one was powerful. And they've all been powerful. But some of the stuff that sticks out to other people is not stuff that sticks out to me.
Right.
You know, and the things that I go, okay, well, that didn't really make sense. Somebody will go, that made complete sense to me, man. It felt like he was talking right to me.
Isn't that cool?
Yes.
Yeah, and I totally know that feeling. We've talked about that before, where everybody has a different takeaway, and that's why it's worth doing this show and bringing in different people and their perspectives. And so things that people like Nate said are going to resonate with certain listeners, and I'm so glad for that.
All right, so we're going to take a break. We'll be right back with a little more Project Recovery.
A gun in the face.
Then all of a sudden they all kind of lined up. They pointed their guns at me. And this is the point where I thought, I'm going to die today.
Started 2 years of horror for an American in Venezuela.
They said, you need to give us your phone and get ready because you're coming with us.
I'm Becky Bruce, and I spent a year researching and piecing together Josh and Tammy Holt's story about their ordeal in a notorious prison.
That's when everything started to turn bad. We had another pound on the door. Boom, boom, boom. And there was the police once again.
You can binge all of the episodes of Hope in Darkness on kslpodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, Dr. Matt, for this last segment, I just kind of want to talk about our experiences of doing this, because we're coming up on 1 year of doing this.
Right.
So a little more than 52 episodes, over 250,000 downloads. We're in all kinds of countries. This podcast has really become something more than me and you ever imagined it could be.
It's, a lot bigger than I thought it would.
I remember, and I can tell you this, when I came, so this is a true story. So I get out of rehab, I come down, and I go home, and I call KSL, and they go, hey, can you come in on a Wednesday? And it was on a Friday when I got out. And I was like, yeah, you bet. So all weekend long, I'm thinking to myself, do I have a job there? Because whenever I'd call them when I'm in recovery, they said, hey, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Just fix yourself, do what you need to be doing, and we'll talk about that when you're done.
Which is the right thing to say, of course, but it leaves you hanging.
Yeah.
Right?
And there was anxiety, like, do I have a job? I don't know. But, but me being the optimist is like, well, maybe I will.
Yeah, you would think that for sure.
Yeah. And so I get out on Friday. I'm meeting with them on Wednesday. And I come in and I sit down with them and they go, listen, unfortunately, we're going to have to let you go. Mm-hmm. We're going to, cancel the contract, which I understood. And that I signed the contract and, I broke the contract.
Yeah.
And she goes, and we got to shut the door. But we're not going to shut the door tight. Do you know what that means? And I go, I think so. I said, it's up to me. And she goes, yeah. And without missing a beat, I said, would this be a bad time to talk to you about an idea I have for a podcast?
Of course you did.
And she goes, are you really doing this now? And I go, yeah, because I've got this idea. I said, because I saw the true face of addiction when I was in recovery, and I learned a lot of stuff. And I've thought I'm pretty savvy, and I've been around, and I don't hear people talking about recovery like this. And I don't feel like they're talking to the everyday person like this.
Right.
It's just the addicts. And you can find conversation like this in the 12-step rooms, Narcotic Anonymous rooms, and, in church groups and all that, but not to where it's the mass public.
Right. To people that aren't already exposed or just peripherally know they have a family member who has a problem, but they don't really ever get educated or talk about or feel connected to addiction because it's not their thing.
So I had no idea what I was going to do with the podcast. So I said, but I want to do this podcast. And she goes, well, I like the idea. I'm going to run it by the powers to be and see what happens. But I can tell you this right now, you need to have a doctor with you. Perfect. I got a buddy. He's Dr. Matt. We were doing a podcast before, and it just never launched because I got a DUI and ended up in recovery.
And left me sitting downstairs in the lobby wondering where you were.
Yeah. I said, I'm going to call him.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to call you, and you said, yeah, I think we can do this. So then the idea of Project Recovery is born. We come in, we do some episodes, we've got good rapport, we're going back and forth. And then I remember going into one of the offices, and I said, so how do you gauge? Because I don't know much about podcasting. I go, how do you gauge a successful podcast?
Sort of a new, it really is a new field. Like,
yeah.
They don't, everybody, it's hard to know.
Yeah.
How to gauge.
And I said, so how do we know if it's a successful podcast? And this guy goes to me, he goes, well, if we can get 1,000 a month, you're going to be doing wonderful.
1,000 downloads.
1,000 downloads.
Right.
12,000 a year, you're going to be doing pretty good.
And I remember that, and I was thinking, I don't know, it sounds like a lot.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And so here we are today.
Yeah.
With over 250,000 downloads.
Yeah, we crushed it.
Yeah.
or the listeners crushed it.
Yeah, because that's the truth is that, we're only as good as our stories that people are coming in to willing to share.
We have amazing guests.
I mean, you're smart. You got a doctorate, and I'm me.
You're the entertaining one.
Yeah. So, but I'm saying, but it was a perfect storm.
Yeah.
And throughout this recovery, people have said this to me, and I remember I used to say this all the time, and I don't know if this is blasphemous or not, but I'm going to say it.
It'll be fun if it is.
Yeah, they go, God will only give you what you can handle. And then I go, God thinks I'm strong as heck because I don't know if I can handle this. And there was times that
God may have me mixed up with someone else.
I was like, I don't know. Has God seen me working out? Because I don't know if I can handle this,
right.
But come to find out, I could, and I flourished. And so it was one of those things that I go, okay, man, this is cool.
Right.
And so I think the thing that I've learned through a year of doing this with you is that miracles do happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every day. And sometimes you just need to stop and realize.
Right. You have to look around at what's happening.
Whether you call it a miracle, a coincidence, whatever word whatever you use.
Yeah.
I think people are put in your life for the right reason at the right time. Absolutely. People are taken away from you at the right reason at the wrong time or whatever it be. But I mean, I'm just telling you that
things happen for a reason, and I think we get so involved in what we have to do every day in our life. Sometimes we don't pause to look around and see the processes that are happening and unfolding in our lives. And I think most of the time that has to do with other people. I mean, I think most of the magic that happens in our lives is because of other people and our behaviors and those interactions, those dynamics are the special things that move our life forward and give it meaning. And I mean, I would even say that for the folks at KSL. To be honest, I didn't have much hope that they would want to have anything to do with you after this. And I remember talking to a friend of mine and saying, I'm worried about what Casey's going to do when he gets out. And, and I didn't have a lot of faith in KSL. And boy, they proved me wrong. Like, they had to let you go and cancel that contract that you had before, but they've done such a great job in supporting this show, and I think that everyone was a little skeptical. Will anybody want to listen to this type of a show? Is KSL the right format for this type of a show, being a pretty conservative outlet here in Salt Lake? And I think they took a chance because they knew you, and you were able to take this to a level that I think it resonates with people. And I've had so many people tell me they listen and because they are interested in the topic, because our guests make it interesting, and I think we have a way of talking about it that makes it real. And they don't even have addiction problems themselves or anyone close to them. A mom who brings her kid to come see me the other day said she's like, oh, I just love listening to the show, and she was a little starstruck with, what's it like hanging out with Casey? And I'm like, well, no, but I said, it's fun. Casey's great. Casey is Casey. And I said, how'd you get listening to us? And she said, oh, a friend recommended it. And then I said, oh, that Dr. Matt, yeah, that's my kid's therapist. And I said, do you have somebody who's struggling with addiction in your life? She said, no. She said, but it's great. I love it because now she's like, I feel like I understand something that's prevalent in our society that I didn't understand before, because we see it around us. We see the homeless folks that are struggling with it. We see stories about it in movies and television. We hear of people that struggle with it. If you don't have somebody immediately in your life, it's still going to be in your culture. But it's one of those things that we sort of are ashamed to talk about. And so I am so glad to be part of the opportunity to bring this conversation just out to the public.
Yeah, it's an amazing job, and we want to thank you guys all from the bottom of our hearts for allowing us to do this. So we plan on keeping this podcast going as long as you'll allow us. So if you haven't yet, please recommend it to somebody. Subscribe, share, and rate. And
one of the great things about the show is there's been an organic growth to it where a lot of our guests have come in because of the show. And so if you know somebody that you think would be willing to come in and share their story, or if you are working in the field of mental health or addictions and you'd like to come in and share with us some thoughts and experiences you've had, we would love to hear from you. Of course, you can email us, Facebook, and now we have our voicemail.
And another thing is that Dr. Matt and myself, we would like to take this show on the road. So if communities out there would like for Dr. Matt and myself to come out there and do a presentation and talk to you about resources and kind of open up a conversation in your community, you can reach out to us as well on Facebook and all those platforms.
Yeah, and I think all of this highlights, I think, what's my theme to the show informally is, the opposite of addiction is connection. We've said that a ton. And everything from that voicemail that we played earlier on the show today to reaching out to people in the community, larger groups, if there's connection, it really will reduce addiction. People who are struggling with addiction, once they find a connection, that's the first step on the road to recovery. And so I hope that you will share the show with others.
All right. If you know somebody who needs some help, have them do what I did and give Pinnacle Recovery Center a call. Project Recovery is a KSL podcast.
The contents of this program are for informational purposes only. The program is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, licensed therapist, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this program. KSL does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on the program. Reliance on any information provided on the program is solely at your own risk.